Good day, everyone. We are Group 2, and I am Jolina, and together with my group mates Andre, Mav, Luis, and Pisa, we'll be presenting our topic through this recorded session. For today, we'll focus on the economic self and material self, and how these two are connected. Since the theme of our website is advertising, you may notice that its design is a bit persuasive, as if it is encouraging you to study and reflect more on the topic. This approach helps us connect the idea of advertising with how people make economic choices and give value to material things. With that, let's officially start our presentation.
Hello, good day. So, discover the true meaning of the material self with our engaging online course. Learn how your body, clothing, family, home, and valued possession shape not just your lifestyle, but your very identity. This course will guide you in understanding how the things you own and the spaces you create provide comfort, security, and the sense of belonging. Explore why losing this possession can be feel like losing part of yourself and uncover the powerful connection between who you are and the material world around you. Enroll now and gain a deeper perspective on how your selfhood is reflected in the things and the relationship you treasure the most. So the intended learning on this topic is define and understand what the material self is, determine the different factors and contribute to one's material self, describe how the material self affect a person, distinguish between needs and wants, and how they influence one's behavior. Evaluate your understanding of financial management principles and their connection to personal well-being, and explain the relationship between possessions and the extended self. So we're going to enroll, and then the first lesson on a weekly subscription.
Now we will be discussing about the material aspect of the self. Let's start with the definition of what is material self. So the material self is the aspect of the self that includes everything a person can call mine. So according to William Jones, year 1890, he described it as the body, clothes, family, home, and possessions. It represents the tangible, physical objects or entities that become part of our identity. So there are four main parts of material self: the bodily self, clothing and possession, home and environment, and people and loved ones. So what is bodily self? Our body is the most basic component. How we see, take care of, and present our body affects our identity. Example of this is our hair, skin, body shape, and physical health. Next, we have clothing and possessions. It is the clothes we wear and things we own reflect who we are and how we want others to perceive us. Example of this is our fashion style, our gadgets, and our jewelries. Next, we have home and environment. The place we live in, like our house, our room, and our neighborhood, represents security, identity, and belonging. Example, some people say, my house is my pride because it shows their life achievements. Last, we have people and loved ones. Family and friends can also be extensions of the self since we see them as part of our identity. Example, pride in children's achievements reflect on the parent self. So now let's talk about the importance of material self. So first, it provides identity and stability like this is mine, this represents me. Next we have it gives social signals like our status, our class, and our taste. Last, it affects self-esteem. Having or losing possessions can influence how we value ourselves. Now, we will be discussing on the influence in media on material possessions. So, media, particularly advertising and social media, have a significant impact on material possessions. by linking them to happiness, status, and self worth, which increases consumption and materialistic values. Media portrayals of luxurious items and idealized lifestyles inspires a desire to own these things in order to boost one's self-esteem and gain acceptance from others. Social media comparisons brought on by constant exposure to other people's belongings encourage people to buy more and better things in order to feel better or stay up to date. People are led to believe that their material belongings determine their value and social status by media representations that frequently associate luxury products with success and happiness. Media exposure can encourage a materialistic worldview in which people value themselves based on their possessions. So now, let's talk about the difference between needs and wants. So the primary difference between needs and wants is that the needs are viewed as necessary for our existence and well-being, whereas the wants are viewed as unnecessary. According to some, determining whether or not its absence will be harmful is one method of differentiating between a need and a want. People may have many different kinds of needs and desires. Making better judgments and living a higher quality of life can be achieved by knowing the distinction between these two ideas. Physical needs and psychological needs are the two categories into which needs are typically divided. In addition to being material commodities, wants can also be classified as psychological or bodily. So for physical needs include elements like food, drink, clothing, and shelter that are essential for survival. The body needs them in order to function and maintain life. On the other hand, psychological needs are more individualized and have to do with our mental and emotional well-being.
So next would be the consumer culture role. So, personal identity is greatly influenced by consumer culture by establishing a complicated interaction between personal preference and society demands for authenticity and difference. Through purchasing decisions, structuring self-worth through consumption, and transforming brands into status and lifestyle symbols, customers use things to express who they are and who they hope to become, which defines how they see themselves. However, when consumption isn't in line with personal beliefs, it may also cause discontent and sense of not being who they truly are. So, the qualities of a wise buyer. Making several choices throughout time, including which consumer goods and services to purchase, is what it means to be a knowledgeable consumer. You can become a more informed consumer by raising awareness, doing research, and taking action. Having so many options may be both exciting and overwhelming. Practice makes perfect, and one will eventually discover where the best deals are. Your living situation and your availability of goods and services will also play a role. Now let's go to different effects of consumerism on the material stuff.
Different effects of consumerism on the material self. The idea of consumerism holds economic progress and personal well-being benefit from rising levels of consumption of goods and services. This means that society believes the more we buy and spend, the more successful and happier we become, both as individuals and as a country. The material self is greatly impacted by consumerism by defining identity through material belongings, creating an endless cycle of discontent, possibly resulting in psychological problems, including anxiety and depression, due to debt or material loss, and encouraging an outside definition of self worth based on acquisitions rather than internal values. In simple terms, consumerism teaches us to see our worth in what we own, and when we can't keep up, we feel unhappy, anxious, or even depressed. This can affect how we view our position and satisfaction and lead to an unending drive for more belongings. We might never feel enough and constantly want to buy more just to feel satisfied or accepted. Positive effects. Identity formation. By establishing a connection between the material world, including our bodies, homes, and collections, and the self, possession serves to define who we are. What we own, like our clothes, room, or phone, becomes part of how we understand ourselves. Expression on self. It is possible to communicate one's achievement, status in society, and sense of self to others by acquiring and displaying particular objects. People often use things like fashion, cars, or gadgets to show their personality, lifestyle, or success. Negative effects. Materialism. The excessive value placed on material belongings as the main source of enjoyment and aspirations in life is known as materialism, and it is encouraged by consumerism. This means we care too much about material things, thinking they are the key to happiness. Never ending cycle of desire. The Diderot effect explains how obtaining a new item frequently causes dissatisfaction with current possessions, which results in a never ending cycle of desiring and purchasing new items to satisfy that gap. We buy one new thing, so it makes everything else we own feel outdated. Compulsive buying behavior. Excessive consumption can show up as compulsive buying disorder, an obsession with shopping and purchasing that frequently leads to serious debt and negative outcomes. This is when shopping becomes an unhealthy addiction, buying just for the sake of it, even when it causes financial problems. Social comparison. The desire to engage in conspicuous consumption to demonstrate social standing can result in an unhealthy social comparisons and an obsession on external measures of achievement rather than inner values. People start comparing what they have to others, focusing more on who looks richer instead of what truly matters inside. Establishing role of consumerism in self and identity. The role of the self and identity is established by consumerism by transforming consuming into the main means of social signaling, self expression, and self improvement. In today's society, what we buy says a lot about who we are. Buying becomes a way to express ourselves or show our status. Beyond traditional markers of identity like status or family, choices about goods, brands, and lifestyles play a significant role in how people create, express, and validate who they are to others and to themselves in modern market based society.
And that's it for the first lesson. Now let's go back to subscription. And let's go to monthly subscription. This is the lesson about economic aspect of the self. So economic self. The economic self is how a person sees themselves in relation to wealth, resource, money, and financial capacity. It includes how we handle money, earn income, spend, save, and make economic decisions. The main aspect of economic self is number one, economic identity. How you see your financial and social class. For example, I'm in the middle class or I'm in the poor class or I'm financially secure. Next would be this shapes how you behave and interact in society. Number two, financial capability. Skills in budgeting, saving, investing, and spending responsibly. Strong financial skills improve one's economic self. For number three is aspiration and economic goals. Career, business, or wealth goals that people set to improve their life. For example, studying hard to get a good job and earn better income. Number four, consumer behavior. How we spend money reflects our values, priorities, and sense of identity. For example, some people spend more on luxury to show success, while others save to feel secure. So the importance of economic self would be helps people survive and meets needs. Number two is define social mobility, moving from one class to another. And then the last one is builds confidence and self-worth. Being financially stable gives people more control and dignity. And that's it for the economic self. And the next would be the yearly subscription, our last lesson. Is the material and tama ba? Material and economics aspect.
Connection between material self and economic self. So how they are different. The material self focus on possessions, body, home, clothes, family, things that are mine. Simply put, the material self refers to the physical things and people we consider part of ourselves, the things we own or identify with. While the economic self focus on financial capacity and economic status, how much I earn, how I spend, how I see my class in society. This is about money, how we manage it, how we earn it, and where we see ourselves in the social class system. So, how they are connected. Economic self enables material self, which means your financial ability affects what you can buy or own. A person's financial resources determine what possessions they can have. Simply put, if you have more money, you can afford more things. Example, someone with higher income can afford a nicer home, branded clothes, or gadgets that become part of their material self. So, the more income you have, the more desirable material possessions you can add to your identity. Material self expresses economic self. The possessions you own reflect your financial capacity and status. What you own reveals your financial status to others because people often judge someone's income or class based on their belongings. For example, owning a car shows both your material self and your economic self. The car is something you own, but it also says something about your income level or financial health. Feedback loop. If your economic self improves, like better job, higher income, your material self also improves. If you start earning more, you can upgrade your lifestyle, bigger house, better clothes, new gadgets, etc. While if your material self suffers, your economic self is affected too. Because losing possessions can make you feel financially insecure or affect how others see your financial situation. For example, loss of home and loss of property will lead to loss of stability and lower status. So that's the connection between the material self and economic self.
So that would be the last lesson. But wait, when we go to about on this page, we can see we have the philosophers. But first, I'm gonna discuss what is the material self. The material self is described by William James, 1890, is the aspect of a person's identity that is linked to their physical body, personal belongings, family, and home. It reflects how the individuals see themselves in relation to the things they own and value. This includes not only the body and how one dresses or presents themselves, but also the possessions and spaces that provide comfort, security, and a sense of belonging. People often invest emotions and identity in their material possessions, which is why losing them can feel like losing part of the self. In the sense of the material self, self highlights the deep connection between who we are and the tangible objects and the relationships that surrounds us. So the economic or material self refers to the part of our identity shaped by the things we own, earn, and use. It includes possessions such as clothes, gadget, houses, and money, and other resources that we consider extensions of ourselves. These material items often reflects our status, lifestyle, and personal value. Economically, it also relates to how we manage our resources like saving, spending, and investing, which influence our sense of security and independence. While material possession can bring comfort and pride, they should not solely define who we are. A balanced perspective shows us to use material and economic aspect to support personal growth rather than letting them control our self-worth. Next, we go to philosophers.
So, these are the philosophers and their perspective about the material and economic self. Actually, there are many more who discuss about this topic, but we only included a few since this list is too long. Each of them gives a different way of showing how material things, wealth, and social position affect who we are. Let's start with Karl Marx. Marx believed in the materialist view of history. This means that the economic system, how goods are produced, owned, and distributed shapes almost everything in society like culture, politics, and even identity. For him, a person's sense of self depends on the relationship with production. Workers, for example, often feel alienated or disconnected because they don't own the products they make, while those who own business and properties hold greater power and influence. In short, Marx emphasized that our identity and social position are largely defined by class and ownership of property. Next is Thorsten Veblen. He introduced the idea of conspicuous consumption, which means people buy expensive things not only because they need them, but also to show their wealth and social status. He also studied the leisure class, the rich people who are luxury goods, to separate themselves from the working class. Veblen explained that we compare our possessions with others, and in the process of belonging, because symbols of self-worth and recognition. This shows that for Veblen, material goods are not just useful objects, but also marks of identity and social standing. Moving on to William James. He introduced the concept of material self, which includes everything we consider as part of ourselves: our body, clothes, family, home, and possessions. He explained that the body is the core of material self because how we dress, how we present ourselves, and the things we own reflect our character and personality. For James, our identity can be clearly seen in our body and possessions, since these are direct expression of who we are. Next is Eric Fromm. He distinguished between having and being. Having means defining yourself but by, by, by what you own, such as money, property, or material possessions. On the other hand, being is about defining yourself through experiences, creativity, love, and authenticity. Fromm criticized modern society for focusing too much on having, since this mindset often leads to emptiness and dissatisfaction. He believed that the true happiness and fulfillment come from being rather than simply from what we own. Now, let's talk about Jean Boulidrald. He, he argued that objects are not just useful but also carrying meanings. In his book, The Consumer Society, he explained that people purchase goods not only for their practical use or price, but also for their sign value, or the message they communicate about lifestyle and identity. For example, wearing branded clothes or using the latest gadget signals prestige and social recognition. Later, he introduced the concept of hyperility, which means that people often live more in the world of images, ads, and brands than actual reality. For Boulidrad, this shows how our identity in modern society is shaped by consumption and the symbols attached to the things we buy. Lastly is Pierre Bourdieu. He expanded the meaning of the wealth by introducing different types of capital: economic capital, money and property; cultural capital, education, skills and knowledge; social capital, network and connections; and symbolic capital, prestige and recognition. He also introduced the concept of habitus, which means that our lifestyle preferences and tastes are influenced by our upbringing and background. This is why our choices in clothing, food, or art are often linked to the social class we belong to. For, for Bourdieu, material possessions and lifestyle are not just personal preferences. They reveal our social background and determine our place in society. So this all philosophers shows us that the material and economic self is not only about survival or comfort. It plays a big role in shaping our identity, influencing how others see us, and defining our position in society. Our possessions, wealth, and lifestyle are not just things we own, but important part of who we are.
So, in conclusion of the topic, our exploration of the material economic self highlights how deeply intertwined our identity is with the things we possess, the environment we inhabit, and the financial choices we make. From the clothes we wear to the home we build to the resources we allocate, each component contribute not only to comfort and security, but to how we view and understand ourselves. Understanding needs versus wants and applying sound financial management, empowering us to make international decisions. Decisions that reflect who we are and who we aspire to be. When we lose possession or mismanage our resources, it can feel like losing a part of ourselves. But when we cultivate awareness and stewardship over our material world, we strengthen that extension of self in a meaningful way. Ultimately, appreciating the material and economic aspect of self doesn't mean valuing things over value. It means recognizing that we own should align with who we are. Embracing this balance allow us to live more authentically and responsibility in a world where possessions, money, and identity interconnects. And our references will be seen at location on a top right. And with that, this concludes our presentation of our website. Thank you very much for watching.